Well, hello.
Hi.
We're doing Q&A tonight. You might recognise that I'm not Matt and she's not Karen. We're Gary and Elizabeth Barnier, and we're filling in for Matt and Karen tonight while they have a little bit of a break. We're with you tonight from our bedroom. Elizabeth's leg has meant that she cannot travel too far downstairs, and that means we're here. So I hope you enjoy the Q&A tonight. You can see a few people coming online, so it's great to see you, and great to have you sharing your time with us. And we have a few questions that were put to us a little bit earlier on. But if you have something that you would like to ask, please do so, and we'd be very happy to try and answer them. We thought we might just give you a little bit of a background of us. While we've been in the church for 3 years now, there may be some who don't really know who we are. So first couple of minutes we might just give a bit of a rundown on who we are and where we came from, and then we'll get into some of the questions. We're from New South Wales, Newcastle, New South Wales. That's where we grew up. We've spent many years there, but God has also led us on a interesting life's journey. We've been in Sri Lanka for a few times, for a number of years, working there, and which we enjoyed greatly. Developed a love for curry and the Sri Lankan people, and so we've really enjoyed that. Elizabeth, some details, please.
Well, I became a Christian when I was 13, and I really just felt like I belonged, that God is my Father and that He loved me. He took me as I am, and that just thrilled me. I just wanted to serve the Lord in whatever I could do, and ended up working in going to Sunday school and then youth, and then doing an after-school program with Gary and some other people from church, and just getting into the ministry, just wanting to be part of what God has planned for Newcastle. And so by doing that, then we got married, and like Gary said, we went wherever God told us to go. We just wanted to give our whole life to God and make ourselves available to Him. And our journey has been interesting, exciting and interesting.
We first came to Tasmania in 1998. We were pastors of a church in Hobart at the time for a number of years. We then returned to Sri Lanka for some time, and then back to Newcastle, where we had a small business that were involved in delivering home care for the aged. So we ran that for 5 or 6 years. Before deciding that we'd had enough of that, so we came back to Tassie, and our son and daughter-in-law came back from London to live here, and so we're all together. So it's a fun time, and we are enjoying being part of Abundant Life Church, involved in the Connect groups, and just in church in general. It's amazing church, amazing people. Matt and Karen are fantastic as our pastors. And so we're really enjoying our time there. Shall we look at a question now?
Yes. How do you keep your own buckets full when you are carrying for others?
When we were in Newcastle recently, we were running a business. We were also running a church up there, so time was quite valuable, and there were a lot of things that were continually kind of trying to impinge themselves on our time, and we reckoned and we realised that we had to make a decision about actually giving ourselves time, and that was the thing that kind of helped fill our buckets. It really gave us something to look forward to, and what we decided to do was go to the beach in Newcastle. There are a number of beaches. We went to Merewether. We started off with just an umbrella, and when we finished there, we had umbrellas and bags of things and chairs and all kinds of stuff. But we would go there for 2 or 3 hours on every Monday, spending time on the beach, spending time on the rocks, just watching the wildlife and the ocean go past. And we discovered that was something that was energizing for us. We could do it together. We appreciated what we saw, what we experienced, and it really gave us filled our tanks, filled our buckets. It gave us an important time where we could rest and relax and do it together, which is important as well. Anything you would like to add to that, my darling?
Also for me was walking, just getting out and just talking to the Lord while I'm walking around, or just listening to music really helped me a lot.
Excellent. What's our question?
The next question was, how do you stay afloat and healthy and happy in your marriage when you're giving so much out to other people?
I suppose that's a similar kind of question. But we decided that through our work in Sri Lanka, we would travel through Southeast Asia quite a bit. We really loved going to Singapore in particular. And we discovered that we had this common desire for travel, and not just to travel, but to plan to travel. And in those times, maybe once every 2 years, we would put a lot of effort. Elizabeth was the main gatherer of information and places to see and places to stay and places to go to. And we discovered that we had this desire to travel, and not just to travel, but to travel together and to experience these things that we thought we would never experience. We are from a housing department suburb in Newcastle. That's where we grew up as children, and it's hard to imagine as someone from that background actually being able to travel and to travel quite regularly. So we've decided that we can travel, and that taking the time to organise the travel is sometimes just as much fun as the actual travelling. So we've experienced that, and hopefully once COVID-19 is over, we'll get to travel. We'd love to go to India, which we'd planned to do in March, just recently, but that was stopped because of the virus. But we hope to do that, and then see what doors open up for travel in the future.
I think also for us was that we kept the communication channels open too with our marriage, and being honest with how we felt, and whether we were stressed or those types of things. I think they're very important to make sure that you're honest with each other and just talk out your feelings. I think that really helps to have a healthy and happy marriage.
So any other questions coming in, darling?
There's a question that's coming from Pete Dish. Did Adam have a belly button?
Pete and Sue Dishington are part of our Connect group, and we had Connect group last Wednesday, and when I mentioned to them that we were doing this today, there were all kinds of threats about the kinds of questions that they would be sending in. So I take this as one of those questions, and I think, did Adam have a belly button? Well, I would say he probably did, and it was where God held him on his thumb and painted him whatever colour he was. So I suppose that's a belly button in some ways.
Okay. The next question is there one thing in your life that you haven't done?
Would you like to answer that, Bill?
Yeah, I was thinking about that. I haven't gone into space. I would love to go into space. All through my life, I've always looked up at the sky in the night and looked at the stars and looked at the moon and just looked at the Milky Way and just wondered, how big is our God?
Mm.
And even now I'll look outside and I'll look at the stars and I just think, God, you're amazing. I look at the stars and think of them as God's children and think, wow, I'm one of God's children. That he died for me. And I just think that's how many people in the world that belong to the Lord. So that's what I would love to do. What about you?
I have a similar thing actually. We have a habit of, on our wedding anniversary, we would actually take time to go and visit somewhere. And in our years in Tasmania, we've kind of done a few different areas. We've gone to King Island for our wedding anniversary. We've gone to the northwest area.
Strawn.
We've gone to Strawn. We've been up to St Helens and Eddystone Point, I think it is. And so we've covered a lot of Tasmania, but there's one area that we haven't got to, and I would really love to go to Strathgordon. I don't know why. It just seems to be a thing, just to make sure that we've kind of covered the area of Tasmania as well as we can. But I'd like to drive there, see Lake Pedder, and just have a few days to be able to put a pin in the map and say, yes, we've done that as well. So Elizabeth's going to the stars, I'm going to Strathgordon, and we'll meet somewhere in the middle. There's another question, darling.
How have you navigated challenging seasons of your life in your marriage? I was thinking about this question and thought that when we moved down from Newcastle to Hobart in 1998, when we were pastoring the church, we had to leave our eldest daughter up in Newcastle because the college and the system that we had in Newcastle, they didn't cross over. And so that was a really challenging thing to leave your child in another state and move away from them. And God comforted me and Gary through this. It was a trust that developed. I put into action what I read in the Word about trusting in God and like acting upon that. And I just was thinking, it may sound like it was an easy thing, but it was a very hard thing to leave your child and move away. But God's good, and God helped me understand, and we were able to bring her down on the school holidays, and we had our family time together. But God's good, and he was there. He was a comfort, and I just really felt God's presence in that that season. And then Rachel was able to move down to Hobart, and she's been in Hobart longer than all of us.
Yeah.
So God's good.
Yes, she found a husband down here, and they're going so well.
Yeah.
And how God works these things together for good for those who love Him is quite an amazing thing when you take a moment to consider God's actions and God's activity in all areas of our life. He wants the best for us in all those areas, and sometimes it can be a challenge. Rachel was 17, I think.
Just turned 17.
Just turned 17 when we left, and I can still remember the time because my son and we drove down in our car. We bought some precious things that we didn't want to put into luggage or into a truck to be brought down. So we came down and went across on the Spirit and arrived here a couple of days before Elizabeth and our youngest daughter. But I can still remember backing out of our house to leave and to feel this crunch in my soul when I thought Rachel's not coming. And so it was a difficult time. We knew that God had directed us and He'd led us to become the pastors of the church. And it was about growing us as well. So there was many aspects of, and there probably usually is many aspects of God's ministry and in His direction in our lives, that we need to recognise that He's not just a one-facet God. He's just not interested in a particular part of our spiritual or emotional growth or whatever. He's interested in the whole of us, and that time was a time of growing and a time of missing Rach and enjoying the times when we had with her until she could come down full time. So it was a challenging time, wasn't it? It was. And probably we didn't really fully understand how challenging it was going to be, but there you go. It came through.
I think too, as well as that, it was a kind of like, okay, God, we said that we'd serve you and go anywhere that you wanted us to go, and so surrendering our child, so to speak, and saying, well, that's not going to stop us from serving you. God honoured that, and He looked after Rachel, and He cared for her, and also with us, we were able to just trust in Him and get on with what God wanted us to do.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. That's good. Any more questions from Pete Dishington?
No more from Pete, but one from Ben Gaskell.
Huh?
Do you miss Sri Lanka?
Shall I?
I think I'll go first.
Go for it.
I do miss Sri Lanka. The people are beautiful people, and like we just really just fitted in so well in Sri Lanka. We loved the church. We got on with the things that we were doing, but there's always a season. God could have opened up and we could have stayed there however long He wanted us there, but that wasn't the plan. And so, as I was saying before, when you serve God, you go where He tells you to go, where He directs you to go. And so we had a fantastic time. We met so many people. We have great friends over there, and we'll always visit Sri Lanka. Our heart is after Sri Lanka. It's like it was like a fire in our bones, so to speak. But God moves you on, and you do grieve a little bit, I'd say, whether I've used the correct word, but you do because you really put 100% in wherever God sends you, and that was for me. That's how it was.
It was interesting because we would say that when we flew from Australia to Sri Lanka, and we did it 6 or 7, 8, 9 times. It was a lot of times. But whenever we left Australia and flew to Sri Lanka, we felt like we were coming home to there. And then when we left Sri Lanka and came back to Australia, it was like we were coming back home to here. So we actually were living in 2 different homes in 2 different countries, and having a generally quite a good time. God opened many doors. God taught us so much about Him and about His desires for us, and how we could be used in ministry, and it was quite amazing. Like the first time we went to Sri Lanka, I was going there to help them actually physically build a church. That was the plan, and we were there for, I think, 2 months. We were there for a whole year, but after the first 2 months, the senior pastor where we were staying, we were actually living with his family, and ministering in his church. He said after those 2 months, in 4 weeks' time, we're going back to New Zealand, which is where his wife was from. He thought, okay, they're going for a visit. And he said, yes, we'll be there for 6 months. And I want you to look after the English congregation. Now that was a huge responsibility, and quite an unexpected one. But God was faithful, and from I think something like 25 people when he left, when they came back, there were 70 people in the English-speaking congregation, and we had touched many lives. And it was just, trust me, it wasn't us, it wasn't preaching or anything. It was just God moving through the lives of people. People were reaching out to their friends and inviting them along. And they would come because there was a white person up the front speaking, which was quite a phenomena in the mountain town where we were living. There was only perhaps 5 or 6 white families who lived in that town of 20,000 people or so. So we were a little bit of a talking point, a little bit of a, well, let's go and see what this person, what this family is about. That was part of it. But God was using all those aspects, all those invitations, all those opportunities to share and to speak into their lives, and to make a great difference in a spiritual sense in their lives. So we'll always be grateful for the opportunity. The only thing was that I got in trouble from one of the women there. A woman with how shall I say this?
A woman's too thin.
If a woman was too thin, it was a sign that her husband wasn't looking after her. So I got in trouble from this lady who was a regular part of the congregation. She would come up to me and wave a finger and say, "You're not looking after your wife. Look how thin she is." So I tried to get Elizabeth to fatten up, but she wouldn't be in it. So that was a shame. But we do miss. Do we still miss Sri Lanka? I suppose we miss the people. We miss our friends. We miss the food. The food is absolutely fantastic. So we miss all those things, but recognise that was part of a season that God has led us into and led us through and taught us lots of stuff, and now has led us out to where we are fully committed to Abundant Life's vision for India, and the impact that the church is having in Calcutta is amazing, and to have the opportunity, I think last August, to go there and to see what Jeanetta's done there, and to see the people in the children in the home, and to see the outworkings in the other parts of the city is amazing, and we will be very happy to continue to support that and to be involved in whatever way Pastor Matt and Jeanette thinks is appropriate. So we do miss, and we were just talking, I was talking about if we do go to India, perhaps we can take a bit of a side trip to Sri Lanka on the way home. So all these things are interesting, all these things are possible. Whether they come off or not, who knows? But I think we're moving on. We're entering into a new phase, into a new season, into new work in Calcutta, in India.
Can I just say that what I learned from going to Sri Lanka was this. The first time we went, like Gary was saying, he pastored the church, and we were involved in the church and also the building program. And I was homeschooling the children. That was my main job, was to homeschool 2 children, look after our toddler. The next time we went to Sri Lanka, and we went by ourselves, Gary knew what he was doing, he knew what he was going to do when he got to Sri Lanka, and I didn't know. And I was just saying, Lord, I don't have any idea what you want me to do. And I didn't find out until I got there. And it was kind of like, use what you have in these hands. And so I used what I had with these hands, and that was teaching women that come from the slum area and women that come from the streets how to sew and how to get a job through that, the sewing and embroidery, and to sell the stuff that they made. And I just loved it, and I just thank the Lord that I only learnt how to sew through high school. So it wasn't like I'd gone to a tape or anything like that to learn how to sew. It was just high school sewing. But God used that, and I was able to talk to the women. I was able to let them know how much value that they have. And it was just being available and just saying, yes, Lord, I'll go. And God can do amazing things.
Mm-hmm. And so, some of these women, the only place they lived was they had a piece of cardboard, and every night they would put the cardboard in one of the doors of the shops in the area where they were living, and that's where they would sleep with their 1, 2, 3 children, just on that piece of cardboard. So to be able to bring something into their lives that allowed them to actually start earning money, and not earning money through prostitution or selling their children, but actually making something with their hands, brought a great deal of dignity and integrity to them and to their lives. And they were able to get money, and there were a number of occasions where they would, get enough stuff together to build a small shanty, a little hut out of cardboard and corrugated iron and bits and pieces. But they could only do that because Elizabeth had taken the time and was following what God had asked her to do. So it was an amazing change, revolution in the lives of some of those women, some of those children as well, who've moved on to be part of the schooling program that we were involved in Sri Lanka. They getting an education takes them out of poverty, takes them off the street, gives them a potential job. It's just amazing how little things can have huge impacts in the lives of people in those situations.
The next question is, why is church a priority in your life?
Always gone. I'm just looking at my pre-prepared answer. I find church is a priority because it actually gives me a connection to the world. Some people can find connection through their job. Other people find connection through sporting teams. Some people find connection through clubs. Some people find connections through many different ways. To me, and I've been involved in church ever since I was 6, so that's about 1753 or something like that. So, but for a long time, and I have found that being in a church and being connected to a church and going to church actually allows me to connect to my world in a way that makes sense to me. It allows me to connect to people and to follow people with the same kind of belief system that I have, and to be encouraged in that and encouraged by them. It's a great thing, and so I don't see just church as somewhere you go to on a Sunday. I believe church plays potentially such a huge role in allowing us to see the purposes of our life fulfilled, to see the words that God puts into our heart, and the skills and I'm looking for the right word, talents, perhaps. All those things that God has placed in me finds expression through going to church, and so it's a very fulfilling experience. I hope that made sense.
I also think too that I love going to church. There's all the things like seeing the people. I love it when we all come together and then we just praise and we just worship God. I just love that like, if I could use those words, sometimes we just touch heaven, so to speak, in our worship, that we've come to adore our King, we've come to adore our Lord. We've just, and like there's lots of things about going to church, but that's just one of the things that I love. I just love to worship the Lord. Mm. And our last one is, you can answer that one.
Connect groups. Why has that been a priority? It's been interesting that we have been involved in connect groups in our church in Hobart back in 2000, and when we had the church in Newcastle more recently. We've always been and always promoted life groups, connect groups, whatever their names were, but the gathering of people, generally in different homes and whatever. So I see connect groups as an opportunity to hear other voices. We have a great time. We have a great group of people in our connect group here, and we have a good laugh. And but we also can get into some serious discussion, and there are facets of things that people say and that I say that we can talk about. It's not a matter of agreeing with everything I say, definitely not. But we can have a discussion about that. And in those discussions, our own perspectives can be built upon, can be challenged, it can grow, and it allows us to, I think, know why we believe something. And I think that's important in these days, not just to believe something, but to be able to offer up a defense that says, this is why I believe it. And it doesn't have to be an antagonistic thing. It doesn't have to be an argument. We just need to be assured, well, this is why I believe it, and be able to say, This is why I believe it. And I think in connect groups, it gives opportunity for those discussions, for those, no, I was going to say arguments, but they're not arguments at all. It's really the wrong word. But it gives time for those discussions where we can question, we can look into, we can listen to what people are saying. And it also develops closer friendships. You know, it's good to be in church on a Sunday, say hello, you bump an elbow, you just have a quick word. That's great. But I can remember just recently I had a discussion with Pete. Probably the longest discussion that we've ever had. And I found that a great experience. And it wouldn't have been possible except for connect groups. So I think there are a number of reasons. We can support each other, we can grow, we can pray for each other. I think there are a number of reasons why.
We're running out of time.
Oh, Elizabeth's been talking for too long and we're running out of time. I think we may have 1 or 2 minutes left. And anything you'd like to say in closing?
No, I'll let you do it.
Okay, well, we really appreciate that you've spent time with us tonight, and I hope God has been able to speak to you in a way that means something special to you. So we're going to pray. Elizabeth, I'm going to ask you to pray.
Okay.
And then we'll close. So thanks, Naomi.
Father God, I just thank you that we can just come and have this time, Lord. We can answer questions. Father God, I just thank you for who you are. Lord, how much you love us, Lord God, and how much that we are available to you, that you will reveal the plan for our life, Lord God, step by step. Lord God, I just pray for each one listening tonight, Lord
Yes,
God. Lord, I ask whatever they're going through, Lord God, that they would just trust in you, Lord God, just walk in your ways, Lord. I just thank you in Jesus' precious name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Can I encourage you that tomorrow night at 7 o'clock, we have a couple of, I believe it's a couple of guys on doing communion. So I encourage you to watch that at 7 o'clock. And then, as I understand, we'll be putting out our registrations for the Sunday in-person church at 4, whatever it is, at church. So I encourage you to get onto that quickly. We had a great time last Sunday, and it'd be good to see you there this coming Sunday. So God bless, have a great night, and
go and
love somebody.